Around the NFL podcast.
Can't even get on NFL Network in a pandemic.
Welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast. My name is Dan Hanzus, and I'm coming to you from a city and a world filled with heroes and bunkers. Marc Sessler, Chris Wesseling, and Gregg Rosenthal. What's up, boys?
Hey, Dan.
And we have one more hero to introduce. Hit it, Ricky. He's an NFL writer and reporter based in the UK. He's the host for Sky Sports TV, the Inside the Huddle podcast. He was a barefoot kicker and tight end for the Kent Exiles football team. He used to play catch in a storeroom at the NFL Europe office, wearing the head of the Scottish Claymores mascot while doing it. He didn't try honey for the first time until 2008.
Weirdo.
He supports Liverpool, and he is the host of the brand spanking new Neil Reynolds podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Reynolds.
What an intro.
Welcome to the Around the NFL podcast.
Thank you.
That's an anthem.
Hey, that all came from Handsome Hank, right? All that information.
I don't reveal my sources ever.
No, true journalist. Very good. Very good. Thanks for having me, guys.
I mean, let's start with the honey thing. Come on now.
Yeah, what's up with the honey
now,
thing?
Now, my source said that you famously have a very bland palate. And
I do.
But even if that's true, honey 2008, that's a disgrace.
Yeah, I do have a very, very bland palate. And
you're British.
What
are you going to do?
Exactly. What can you do with that?
Really leaning into these cultural stereotypes, Neil.
And I was at NFL UK, and myself and who I'm guessing is your source, Dan, Handsome Hank, Henry Hodgson, we were kind of known for making outlandish predictions and guarantees around NFL Europe games, around NFL games. I think I made some stupid guarantee, which I failed on, and the forfeit was to do like a Bush Tucker trial, like you see in the I'm a Celebrity show, The Jungle. I had to eat a bunch of stuff which was supposed to be kind of really out there, but for me, because I was so bland, it was sushi, which was ridiculous, honey, but then I did eat I think I ate some ants and some crickets, but most of it was just food that everyone really likes, but not for me.
But Neil, I've got to as the person on this side of the ocean that is charged continuously with not being adventurous enough with their food choices. For instance, I've never eaten cottage cheese, and I would rather be taken out by a female gunman than eat cottage cheese, because it's like, why must I swallow what looks like chunky milk?
Why must it be a female gunman?
Well, because that would be an incredible way to go, and I've thought about that probably once a day since like age 17.
There's so many layers to that onion.
But I gotta ask, that's a texture thing. I look at cottage cheese and it's just like, why would a human put that into their system? That's how I feel. But honey feels unoffensive visually in any other way, and it's sort of like it goes back to even like biblical diets. What is the issue with honey?
I'm glad we're peeling this back. I have no idea, but I don't stick to just that texture. You know, I don't eat fish. I don't really like. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a bit fussy, and I don't know what honey. It's just a bit too full of itself, isn't it? I think it's just,
yeah.
We could be
really.
You and I could be quarantined together, and we'd be fine.
Yeah, you guys are fooditarians.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, no,
it's a worldwide issue. The fooditarians, they should unite and push back against all the people that like food.
Well, by the way, we are heading into fooditarian zones. So for those of you,
I don't know, when you have less options.
Well,
Marc,
it's like every Thursday night you need to go eat like lamb chops with like a big eyeball on top of it. That's not an option anymore for you.
There's a bit of an aggressive tone forming here, so let's just move on. Neil, you are the Rich Eisen, of course, famously of the UK when it comes to pro football coverage, NFL coverage, And we are so happy to have you on the show because this has been a great bond between our podcast and your great studio show and live coverage of the NFL at Sky Sports. So I know a lot of listeners who've been listening for a long time are aware that you've been on the show before, but you are very much a friend of the show at a high level. So it's great to have you back, especially at this time where you're launching a new podcast. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I really appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, I'm still hosting the Inside the Huddle podcast with Jeff Reinbold. Rob Ryan's on that with us as well. But I wanted to do something, I think, inspired by you guys. You know, you've had so many side projects and so many, things off, side podcasts, and I do listen to the show a lot. And I thought, well, I should give it a go. And I don't want to do another kind of opinion-based thing. You guys cover all of the news and opinion. You do it in a great way. Mike Florio does it. Peter King does it. Why would people want to hear me do that?
Right. So we don't mention those names on this show
ever.
Sorry. You can probably bleep them out afterwards. I would guess. But so I thought, well, what can I do? I have great contacts. I have good access around the league. I've covered this sport for a long time. I do get very fortunate with the NFL UK Lives to spend a lot of time with players traveling around the UK. So I thought, well, I'll start telling their stories, and that's what I did with the first one. I decided I'm going to make a bit of an effort with the first one and try and go out to actually interview whoever the first one is in person. So I dropped Ryan Fitzpatrick a text and said, "Can I come to you somewhere in Tampa where you live, and we'll do like a 30-minute interview?" And he said, "No, come and we'll go out fishing, and then we'll do the interview." So we literally.
Wow.
We were fishing in the waterways off the back of where he lives.
Did you catch anything?
I did, yeah. And I'm not. I mean, people can listen to the podcast when it drops. We put a lot of the fishing audio in there. I don't like eating fish, but I also don't like handling fish or being around any live fish. So you hear me kind of have a bit of a meltdown because he literally, we started.
Oh, you're ready for the apocalypse, Neil. I could tell.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go out there and hunt a gatherer. So we literally, I cast it, I think is the term, cast it off the back of the boat. And then literally within 5 minutes, I had a bite, and then I was absolutely terrified. And then so I caught that fish, but he had to land it. And then It's
embarrassing.
Yeah, it was. The whole thing was embarrassing. I'll tell you why it was embarrassing as well, because I felt a little bit, I think he did it on purpose, a little bit emasculated. So I'm in this kayak, but it was like a pedalo, really. I'm in this pedal boat, and Fitz looks like some sort of god from an ancient past on a paddleboard, standing up strong, and I'm kind of flailing around in a pedal boat, can't land this fish, and he had to land it, and then I literally turn into 5-year-old Neil Reynolds. It's a question every 5 seconds. Fitz, are we going to put it back? Is that him making that noise? Is he all right? Do you want me to drop him back in the water? How long can he hold his breath for? Are we throwing him back, Fitz? And he was like, "It's fine. He's fine. We're throwing him back." And so, yeah, but we had a great time. And to be able to get that kind of access, that's what I wanted to bring with this podcast, is that up-close access, spending quality time with players. And so we did that on the Sunday, and then I spent the Monday with Bruce Arians. So, that'll be episode 2 coming up in a couple of weeks.
Now, this is Bruce Arians pre-Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, actually, I was so about 5 minutes before I was due to meet with Coach Arians, we're waiting in his office, and then the PR guy for the Bucs said, "Actually, let's wait outside in the lobby. You don't want to be just camped up in Coach's office." He said he's running a little bit late. He's just been called into an emergency meeting with Jason Light, the general manager. And I said, I'd love to be a fly on the wall with that. Free agency starting next week. So coach comes in, and then the very next day, I'm flying home. There was a headline saying the Bucs are apparently all in for Tom Brady. So what were they discussing in that meeting? But
wow.
he was a good one as well. And I think when you get people, the good thing about this podcast, I think, and I hope, is that I'm not trying to break news. So I said to Coach Arians, I would like 30 minutes of your time, but I'm probably not going to ask you a question about Jameis Winston, because it's about your life. It's about your stories. And he was I've interviewed him a couple of times before, but he was as open and as emotional as I've ever seen him. So it was, hopefully that comes across.
No, that's great. So yeah, Neil Reynolds podcast, wherever podcasts are found. Is it up yet? Is it launched yet? What's the date?
So it launches tomorrow, Thursday, 7 a.m. in the UK time. So
wow.
So by the time you guys wake
Beautiful.
up on Thursday, it will be up and running, and hopefully get some good numbers.
I have one quick question. If so, it is a slight humble brag, but you own it because you're a man who's deep in sources. You're texting back and forth with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So, I mean, I just want to know when he sends a long, chunky paragraph, capitalization, grammar, punctuation, is it totally what you'd expect from, we all know where he went to school. Is it Ivy League level texting, or is he a typical athlete bro when it comes to communication?
No, he's pretty good with that. The only thing and if you know Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's a bit of a joker. So when I met up with him at the Super Bowl, we arranged to meet through his agent. When Fitz was over in the UK, he made all these pictures of us that were on the stage show together, but superimposed our faces on the Coyote Ugly scene, on the Spice Girls. And so he introduced me to his agent by saying Neil's the one in the bottom right, and then I looked at the picture, and it was me as Baby Spice with the blonde hair and everything. So, yeah, that humor comes through with him. But no, he's a very intelligent man. He's actually the most unspoiled NFL player you could ever wish to meet. I mean, the last thing he said to me was like, we'll come back and we'll do this again soon, but don't bring any recording equipment. We'll just take a few beers out. It was a privilege to spend the time with him. It was a bit like being in that, it felt like a couple of characters in that big movie with Tom Hanks, because we arrived at his house, knocked on the door, and he said, we're going to go about half a mile down the street to record by the water's edge. And I said, okay, we're all going to jump in one car. And he said, no, he sent the producer off, he sent the cameraman off, and he went, me and you are going to go on these, and walked into his garage. And there are 2 electric scooters. And then he just races off down the road, and I had to try and catch him up. And that's just how he was.
He seems like the guy he's figured out life. He's rich. He's a football player. He's got the Harvard angle. He's got like 47 kids. He's happily married. He's got scooters going down to the pond to go fishing. It just seems like the guy figured it out.
Yep, he's ticked every box. And very unspoiled by it, though.
So to speak.
All right, Neil. So this is what we're going to do. We're happy that you're sitting in on the Wednesday edition of the Around the NFL Bunker Cast. How many Bunker Cast?
Drink here, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, there it is. Of course.
Yeah.
If people that watch, it's wine 30. Definitely where Neil is, no matter what the time is.
It's nighttime.
And you'll know that from our Sky Sports appearances over the last couple seasons, that Neil, he likes to get a little bit loose. If you catch my drift.
Well, on air.
On air, off air, any time of day. Sun's up, sun's down, the wine's out. Yes or no? Come on now.
But we'll deal with it.
Ricky, how many bunker casts are we up to now?
I think I know the number.
Are we 13?
She
14?
She's I don't know. She's having there's some
we've done 2 full weeks and a Friday, so now we're at 13.
That's not 8.
Yeah, we're 13.
All right, Bunkercast 13. We're gonna hit some news.
5,
I hope Erica's okay. We're having some technical difficulties on her end. We'll hit some news, and then Neil, I hope you're comfortable with this. Usually, if you're a pro, you clear it with the guest, but we didn't do that. We're gonna sit you on the hot seat and ask some questions and get some answers.
No, I
from
saw
you,
that at your live show. I'm not sure I'm happy about that.
So just be ready.
Payback.
Not less an interrogation and more, payback for you doing the same thing to us last time we were in England.
Fair enough.
All right, before we do that, though, let's get to the news.
Welcome to the Ryan Fitzpatrick podcast.
No, I said you helped me launch my podcast, the Neil Reynolds podcast.
Welcome to the Neil Reynolds podcast.
You're just a guest. Special guest.
Okay.
But a guest nonetheless.
Okay, my fault.
Coming soon.
All right, let's start with news that became official. We've talked about this on the podcast, that it was something that was tied to the new CBA, which has since been ratified, but it will indeed start in the year 2020 this season, hopefully. The NFL expands to 14 teams in the playoffs, up from 12. The big fallout from this, obviously, it's one team in each conference added to the mix. Also, there is no longer a number 2 seed that gets a bye. So now you only have one team that gets a bye straight into the divisional playoffs. You have an extra team in each division, in each conference, making the dance. And it happens right now, this season, still 16-game season, Gregg Rosenthal, but the playoff expansion is immediate.
Yeah, we are still waiting to see how this NFL season goes, but I think it's a fairly safe bet that NBC and CBS are both going to be broadcasting extra games. That was what I would, because we knew this was happening, but I was interested in how this was all going to play out. And basically, NBC is getting a Sunday night game, which will be fun. I mean, those wildcard weekends are going to be packed days with 3 games on each day. And then CBS gets an extra game where they also have a simulcast on Nickelodeon. So, maybe that's a spot they can throw the old Around the NFL podcast guys in.
Hey now.
No, they're going to put like Blippi on that show. It will definitely be. It's an interesting thought having a youthful slant to how you call the game, I imagine, and playing it up that way. Neil, this is bad news for you, of course, because it's always difficult Sunday Night Football with the time change. It's in the middle of the night over in the UK. Now you got a playoff game going on at that time. Rough, but I guess the Super Bowl is even later.
Yeah, the wild card weekend and divisional round are the toughest 2 weeks on the calendar over here in terms of hosting the shows, because we will come off air around about 4:30, get to a hotel or somewhere for 5:30 in the morning. Then we're back in the studio about 2:30, ready to go for the 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff time games for the Sunday. So you do that Saturday, Sunday, both weekends, and it does. It does take a little bit of a toll, but as I often say, we're just sitting there watching TV for a living, so can't complain too hard. I mean, I do, but no one's really going to listen. Yeah, I do, I absolutely do, but no one's going to listen.
Hey, Wes, do you think that obviously now only one team getting the bye, is that too much of an advantage for one team to have that? I know as a group, we're kind of a little on the fence or against the idea of letting in these mediocre teams into the playoffs. But what about at the top of this with only one team getting a bye? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm trying to keep an open mind, and I think we'll have answers afterwards, but I don't think there's any need to think the sky is falling on the level of competition in week 16 or 17 yet. I'd like to see a fairly big sample size before we draw any major conclusions about the competitiveness and how much of an advantage that is. I think it's interesting because change is interesting.
I saw a couple bye teams picked off in recent years, and I think it's interesting to add the 7th team where people are assuming that it's going to be some sort of 7-9 operation. And if you go back to 2000, none of these 7 seeds that would have made the playoffs in a 14-team format would have had a losing record. So that, for me, that kind of quells some of the fears. And I read an interesting article on Cleveland.com that said, in quotes, the expanded playoff format increases Browns' chances of making playoffs. Now, that to me is cutting-edge journalism. You have the analysis there is from the far reaches of space.
I did see some advanced metrics kind of saying that the 1 seed's chances of going any further aren't any higher, which kind of makes sense because they're in the same spot. It basically is just banging the 2 seed, and like their chances of making the Super Bowl now go down a significant amount, and that spreads out to the 3, 4, 5, 6. But the way they did it, basically, I don't know if the 1 seed's getting an edge as much as just that 2 seed is now getting banged in comparison.
And to the crowd that says, why is this happening? First of all, there's always been a shift going on. It's been a 12-team playoff field since 1990. It's been 30 years, obviously, but it was a 10-team field from 78 to 89. It was an 8-team field from 70 to 77. So the game has evolved over time in terms of how they handle the playoff structure. It just hadn't happened in a long time. Now, is it because we hit on the perfect structure? I kind of think yes, but then I had a teacher in junior high, Mrs. Miller, her name was. She was our social studies teacher, and she would teach us about what was going on, and she always pointed to one undefeated truth of the world: money makes the world go round. And during the negotiations for the CBA, they projected the players' union in the NFL projected $150 million in new annual revenues from broadcast rights and stadium revenue connected to adding these teams and just beefing it up a little bit. And that, I mean, this is a business, and they're looking to make money, and as long as they don't destroy the product, which I don't think they will, I'm kind of into it. And circling back, Mark, if you're a fan of an eternally mediocre team, you know what I really miss? And Mark, you miss it more than me because it's been longer. There's nothing more exciting than waking up on a Saturday or Sunday in January when your team's playing a playoff game, and how exciting that is. I don't care what their record was or how they got there. To give more fans that opportunity, I think that's a good thing too.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I had that feeling was New Year's Day 1995. So I was excited for a lot of other reasons. The future was bright. I was young, vivacious, physically fit, looking better than now. So
you were excited about the Empire Records release. That was a
absolutely that was a huge moment.
All right, in other league news, the NFL and their executives, they're planning for the season to start on time with the fans in the stands. That is the hope here with of course, the COVID-19 pandemic and the coronavirus. There's really no way to know how this is all going to play out. We all know that. But the NFL is going forward. You know, the way the schedule works, Greg, for the NFL, they're different than all these other major sports in the U.S., where they're having this opportunity to say to themselves, we have a window here where, since we don't have actual on-field action, we can maybe, if everything works out, click into a situation where nothing is affected. And that's just what this is about. So they're planning for a reality, a best-case reality, where they're essentially unaffected other than, changes like there not being a physical draft, OTAs, things like that could be out the window. But the actual season to come, I think they're holding out hope they can rock on here.